Lowest earning Americans will see their income drop by 3%.
Affordability and saving Medicaid. Let's separate those.
The Tax Policy Center says the majority of the tax benefits will go to Americans making $217,000 or more.
Let's hop into a spicy CNN interview with MAGA Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent amidst this horrendous bill passing and the effects that are about to disintegrate the middle class. So leave us a like on the video if you can. It helps us out a ton. It lets us know you enjoy the content, and let's see what context we can add.
The Tax Policy Center says the majority of the tax benefits will go to Americans making $217,000 or more a year. The Yale Budget Lab says the richest Americans will see their income rise by nearly 2%. The lowest earning Americans will see their income drop by 3% when factoring in cuts to Medicaid and food stamps. You argue that the benefits will really be aimed at the middle class. How does that square?
Dana, first, let's have a look at the Yale Budget Lab, because I was looking at their findings, and this week I actually went on their website. They're all ex-Biden officials, so I think we can discount everything they say.
Yeah, guys, let's not trust a Yale economist. Not like that's a credible institution. They're woke, the professors, right? But I want to be clear that even if they all were Biden cabinet members, politics do not affect economic analysis, and he's smart enough to know that, so he's clearly being dishonest here and just doing the typical Trump tactic of every fact that disagrees with me is woke. But then, there's also the fact that I looked, and he's also just clearly lying about that because none of the people are Biden, officials or whatever. 5-second sidebar, you should check MAGA on Twitter melting down at Grok, the AI, because it will tell them facts, and they'll be like, you're woke in legacy media, and they'll, literally argue with Grok. Hilarious. But as to the bill, we now know for a fact that what Trump signed into law will leave the poorest Americans with less income. Most of the middle class will be about dead even or a little worse off. If you're at the top of the middle class, you'll see minute benefits. And the rich will be much richer with massive debt that anyone in the working class will have to pay for eventually. It's just another disgusting handout to the wealthy.
One of the tax cuts that are in here are for, and the president talks about them a lot, are on tips and overtime. Mm-hmm. Those are temporary. Why not make those permanent? They're only 2025 to 2028.
This is a big part of President Trump's agenda. So, we have what I call parallel prosperity here, that Wall Street has done great. Now it's time for working Americans to do great. And this is President Trump's agenda, so we've got it in for the duration of his term. And we will see if the next administration wants to do that.
And just talking about the affordability, how is making cuts on Medicaid programs? Well, how does that, and how it affects the people who are at the lowest ranking when it comes to income, how does that help with the affordability crisis in America?
Well, first of all, that affordability and saving Medicaid, let's separate those.
Right, and funny enough, the no tax on tips, no tax on overtime quickly turned into tax credits. He didn't really say that on the campaign trail, and they expire when Trump leaves office. Bessent's answer there meant nothing as to why the working class ones expire when you realize that all of the rich guy tax cuts are permanent, but just the child tax credit, part of your family values, by the way, no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, all of these expire. So it's pretty clear why, and that's why he can't answer. Also, you can't separate Medicaid and affordability, Medicaid cuts and affordability specifically, if the poorest Americans now have to come out of pocket for certain medicines or treatments or for monthly co-pays on their insurance. And on top of that, because of him doing away with a SAVE plan, some might have to pay student loan payments that they wouldn't have had to before while living in abject poverty. Affordability quickly becomes a much bigger issue for those that already plagues the most at that. And MAGA knows this. They just don't care.
There's a group of Democrats who unfortunately seem to think that poor people are stupid. I don't think poor people are stupid. I think they have agency, and I think to have them register twice a year for these benefits, that is not a burden. But these people who want to infantilize the poor and those who need these Medicaid benefits are alarmist.
Yeah, but My impression of the Republican Party is that historically you've wanted to cut through the red tape and not create more red tape. But I do want to move on because
Well, no. But we've also wanted to put in work requirements, which somehow that was very popular under Bill Clinton, was popular under President Obama, and this Democratic Party blew out the deficit in 2020, and they never want to bring it back.
Okay, lot to touch on there. First off, Trump was president in 2020 when he's saying the deficit ballooned. So how would that be Democrats? Last 3 Democratic presidents have reduced the deficit. Last 3 Republican presidents have increased it. These are just big boy facts. Again, Scott Bessent's smart enough to know that, probably being dishonest. Second, it is just empirically factual that the more hurdles you put between a person in need and the care that they need, that ultimately less people will make it to the care. But I do love that his argument for the actions he knows will cause people to lose coverage, millions, is, well, I don't think they're stupid. They're smart enough for me to steal their health care. But yes, he actually does think they're stupid, or he wouldn't be feeding them blatant lies. I, however, don't think that all poor people are stupid. I think that all people deserve health care, and lack of access puts additional burden on the poor. It's literally that simple, but never forget how Republicans value lining their pockets more than making sure their people have health care insurance.